Good morning to the Caron YouTube audience here on the 13th of February, just before Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day to those of you who are on screen and here tomorrow. And then it's 2022 if anybody's watching this years from now. And greetings again to those of you who are with me and those of you who are watching on live stream on campus. I'm so grateful to be a part of the Caron Chapel experience and our principal presider, having taken over many years ago from my buddy, Father Bill Hulpert, who I always like to remember, both in heart and spirit and in voice. I have a topic calendar, and today's topic I had some preconceptions about when I was a kid. So I'm old enough that I spent most of my life still in the 20th century. So my guess is there are a fair number of people who are here who spent either all of their life or the majority of their life in the 21st century. When I was growing up, I learned about surrender from my seniors, my elders. And I remember learning about certain key moments in history that were surrender moments. And like one of the things in my personal story was I lived in Europe for a while, and I remember visiting a place called Versailles, which is a beautiful place outside of Paris, a palace. And there was in 1915, the end of World War I, was the signing of the Treaty of Versailles in June. And so that made me understand, like, that was a surrender moment. And then also I learned about World War II, and there you have 2 days, VE and VJ Day. So you have 2 days in which the European front finishes, I think, second in August or September, and the Japan finishes in May or June of 1945. And there are specific dates. I feel bad for not knowing exactly what they are. But my point is, this fixed in my brain an idea that surrender was a day and a date. It was a moment when you wave the white flag and things change, which I'm not saying is entirely wrong, but when you run the tape forward, I'm 28 years old and I enter the experience of addiction recovery. Largely an atheist. I mean, I shouldn't say largely. I identified at that time as an atheist. I was sure of the non-existence of God. And I came to Alcoholics Anonymous was my portal of principal entry. Actually more, to be honest, Narcotics Anonymous. I went to NA before I migrated more to AA. But that tells you that there were more than just alcohol in my history, and that I think is true for many of us today. And as I entered so let me call it the 12-step world. I entered the 12-step world, and I was there to see if my entrance into that world would make it possible for me to stop using. And I was told that surrender was an essential ingredient. And that it was, I remember early on, I was being told that surrender was a spiritual principle, which, remember, as the atheist, I was like, oh, about spiritual principles. And notice how I'm dressed today. But I've come a long way. I was very much suspicious of anything that was labeled as a spiritual principle. But so I was wrestling, and I had that rebellion that I think many of us have with authority issues. And so when people told me I had to do something, I would be reluctant to immediately say, sure, no problem. And yet, when I thought about why I was there and what I was doing and how my life had been previously with respect to alcohol and other drugs, I was perfectly ready to admit defeat on the battlefield of alcohol and cocaine and marijuana and hallucinogens and the other substances of which my life had sort of collapsed. I was fine with that. I'm like, okay, if what I have to do is say that there is a VR day, a victory of recovery day for me. And I thought that was my sobriety day. I was like, that's when it is. January 3rd, 1989 is my official surrender day, right? So why are people giving me a hard time about surrender is a deep and profound spiritual issue? Because I have already surrendered. I'm not using, I'm clicking one day at a time, I'm I'm getting coins and keychains, and I'm making the progress. So I've already officially surrendered, people. And here it is, 33 years later, and I want to figure out how to share with you that my journey in 12-step recovery and exploring now other forms or supporting methods for recovery has caused me to become one of those people who really believes I really did not understand what they were saying at the beginning. That there's a great deal more. And if I could try to put it in words quickly, I would say that today I think of the surrender that is what I'm talking about. It's not a moment. It's a disposition. It's a attitude. It's a way of life. It's a practice. It's a method. It's an ongoing. When I first was getting ready for this week's message, I always do this, which is sort of fun and interesting to see if it sticks, is on Sunday evening or Monday morning, I start the paperwork to get myself ready for the next Sunday, and I stick a title on my message, knowing what the theme is. And so the title I stuck on my message last Sunday or Monday was 1,000 surrenders. And my point is 1,000 is not the exact count. It's that it's an innumerable number. In 33 years, the number of little moments when I have had to practice this philosophical shift. So how did I get from one to the other, and what would be the best way for me to sort of make that a little more tangible for the audiences that are here today? I decided I wanted to tell, I'm a storyteller, I wanted to tell a story that I think I have not told from the microphone position here before. I always use my wife and our relationship as straw. I'm glad she doesn't watch. Don't tell her to watch, because she would not be happy with me. But anyway, I'm married to this amazing woman. Her name is Judy, and I'm in my second marriage. And after my first marriage ended and I started dating Judy, we had to get to know each other, obviously, and I wear a tie. It's part of my idea of professionalism. I'm not required to wear a tie, but I wear a tie Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday on the job. And at the time, I wasn't here at Caron. This was a long time when I first met Judy. But I was in a job where I wore a tie. And so I guess we went out to dinner or something like that, or till lunch. And I had a tie clip on that was a Mont Blanc tie clip. I don't know if you know what that is, but I was into pens also. So it was like it looked like a fountain pen. And it was a little tie clip. And I was like, check out my Mont Blanc tie clip, buddy. Do you like it? And she paused for a minute, but one of the things about my wife is she is incredibly straightforward and honest. She will say the truth even if it's gonna hurt my feelings. She just doesn't have that guile thing in her. And I think that's one of the reasons why I love being with somebody, because I know she doesn't play games. So she says, I can see the pause, and then she goes, well, actually, I really just don't like tie clips at all. So here's what happened. I took the tie clip and I put it in the trash. And she said, wait. I don't want you, if we're gonna make a relationship out of this, I don't want you having to change you and this and that, there's an argument on her side to be made. But I said, no, let me explain to you something here. And this is gonna stay with us, Judy, if we stay together, and I have learned that there are things worth arguing over, and there are things that are tie clips. And I could care less whether I wear tie clips or not. So I'm going to save up my coins in this allegory for times when I really want to defend something that's about me. But if you want your man to not wear tie clips, easy enough, bing. And over the now almost 20 years we've been together, I often will say, it's a tie clip. And we chuckle because she understands. So it's a principle, it's a practice of the 1,000 surrenders that I'm talking about. A number of them have been tie clips in my relationship with Judy. Where do you want to go to dinner? I think, let's do sushi. She says steak. I'm like, let's do steak. Tie clip. No problem. And by the way, if you don't practice that in your relationship, I'd like to suggest it's been very helpful. So, where did I get that from? I got that from a guy named Randy. And I want to tell you the story about that because it gets the subject a little bit deeper. Randy was a friend of mine. I shouldn't say, I haven't talked to Randy in a long time. I believe he's still alive. I believe he's still sober. But he and I were in the same little sober flock, getting sober at the same time. And we were sort of pals. And Randy, I remember telling this story. I don't remember where he told the story or when or how, but this is part of what got me to the tie clip practice. Randy married a woman, and he, in his testimony, he said that he and his significant other were embittered, and they were constantly struggling, and that they had tried everything they knew to do to get themselves on the same page. They had gone to couples therapy, they had gone, each of them, to Al-Anon, they worked the steps, they'd done a 4-step inventory on their crap with their, all that sort of stuff. They'd used all the tools. And so Randy was with, actually, a guy who was also my sponsor, Tom, and Randy said to Tom, my wife and I are never going to get on the same page. And Tom, my dear wise sponsor of many years ago, no longer my sponsor but deceased, said to Randy, well, I can get you guys on the same page. And Randy said, well, I don't know how you're going to. The therapist didn't, the steps didn't, Al-Anon didn't. My sponsor said, get on her page. It's funny, actually. But not. It indicates a wisdom that I think fails to be obvious to those of us once we're caught in struggle. Because I think once we're caught in struggle, we each have our investment, or if there's 16 different opinions, then everybody is occupying their spot on the little checkerboard. But you may be, I came from a family where once you were in adversity and in an argument, you lobbed whatever bomb you needed to throw at somebody else to just win the fight, even if it was aloof from the central point of your argument. Because all of a sudden it was about victory, not about substance. But the combination of the get on her page wisdom from my old sponsor, Tom, and my own testimony to you about tie clip practice is to say that I made a jump from admitting defeat on the playing field where the drink is on the table to admitting defeat in a much bigger sphere, which was in the sphere of my interpersonal relationships. And there are other places where I have had the wrestle and then discovery of an opportunity to surrender. And to talk about that, and especially about, at the deepest level, what spiritual surrender means. I don't know how I made this jump, but it occurred to me to mention, I used to use an illustration, I'm modifying the illustration, to mention beavers. The little critters that build dams. And they're, cute, and they're typified in various sorts of, cartoon images, and I remember, and I've seen them in zoos, and they're amazing. But the question that arose in my mind was, why do beavers build dams? Do you know? It's a rhetorical question, but I'm just wondering, do you know why beavers build dams? It's a safety move. It's an evolved safety move. It's a protection move, because by having deeper water than the stream affords them, they can dive down and protect themselves from predators, and they can create habitation in the structure of the dam. So, let me take that as an analogy, because I think people build walls for protection. And we become like the proverbial boy with the finger in the dike, holding the wall up. And that's why in recovery, and why in wisdom traditions, in Christianity and Judaism and Hinduism and Buddhism, you find testimony to the abdication of control and self-reliance, the letting go, and the movement into the way of a movement is a common thing. Like to become a follower of a tradition is what we talk about it as. We talk about you're going to become a follower of Judaism or of Christianity or of Hinduism or Buddhism, right? Because now you're not the agent, you're not the driver, you're not the leader, and you're not, and it evokes fear in me. I don't know if it evoked fear in me. It evokes fear in many of us. And I think we may tend to damn ourselves away from an invitation to follow and seek surrender in that way. But the beaver gets to sit on the dam in the sunlight on a beautiful day when the predator is not around and think, look at this beautiful wall I have built. And how lovely it is, and I can swim and all that sort of stuff. But the beaver is trapped in his or her world, right? He has to stay close to the sanctuary that he's created. And the other natural phenomenon that illustrates this alternative method of living would be a leaf in a long stream, which travels down the stream. It may get stuck for a minute, but then in a storm it gets lifted out and moves on. And as it allows itself to be led by the flow of the water, it experiences world after world after world, right? Cliff sides and fields and mountains, who knows what? And perhaps even one day the lake and the ocean, right? And this is why I want to issue an invitation to surrender as a hopeful adventure invitation, instead of a notion that sounds like defeat. Because one of the things that I was also told when I got into recovery, which I thought was, I misunderstood that too. So I misunderstood surrender as just quitting drinking, and I misunderstood this phrase. They said, you can have a life beyond your wildest dreams. They would say, you'll be rocketed into the fourth dimension of existence. I don't know if any of the relapse guys have heard that expression, but it's in the AA literature. And, a whole attitude and outlook on life will change, and the promises. There's just so many ways in which the recovery community tried to say what I now understand they were saying. But what I thought beyond my wildest dreams meant a faster car, a more beautiful woman, a bigger income, like all the things I had, but just increased in dimension. What I didn't realize was that, like, one of the things that is in the center of my life today, tremendously important, and I just saw them yesterday and last night, is grandchildren. Not my own, I don't have my own biological kids, but in marrying Judy, she brought adult children into my life, and now our oldest, Jason, has 2 girls. And this 3-year-old and 9-year-old are, like, I did not know that I was going to care about these little beings who are so funny and so precious and make me start to think about not doing this anymore. And if you told me I was going to be orienting my life towards family, there was a cynical time early in my recovery when I said family was the F word. I was so broken about my relationships with my family of origin. I've come a long way with that, and the ones that I had the most trouble with have passed on, but I do love my family of origin, and including those who I struggle with the most. I've come to a great sense of peace about them. But beyond my wildest dreams is beyond my wildest dreams. It's dreams I didn't know to dream. It's not more of the dreams I had. And the only way I could get that is to pull my finger out of the dike and run and fly down the chute. go through the looking glass, like Matrix, like take the pill that lets me into the mirror, right? Like I have to abandon my hold on reality as I know it. And I bet most people don't come to Caron with anything like that in view. I would suggest that most people end up here thinking much like I did. I'm here to figure out if I can even stop the crystal meth, if I can even stop the fentanyl, if I can even stop the alcohol or whatever. And they're like, is there any way we can still do some weed? You know, like, and that's the negotiation that's going on. But I'm trying to say, you might be missing the real adventure here. And if you limit yourself to that, you're just talking about building your dam with bricks instead of cinder blocks, right? You're not going to find a new way of living. So that's the best I know to say about all this. And I am so grateful that people were patient with me and helped me as I continued to exhibit the fierce, fear-driven self-reliance of my early recovery. So if you are feeling that way, I get it. And I would encourage you to stay abstinent as long as you can and hang around people who exhibit the weird peace and new freedom and all that sort of stuff, because it's a little contagious. If you find people who really enjoy their recovery, it'll mess with you. So I hope you let go and enjoy the ride.